Rend. Slaughter. Devour your enemies. There is no other way to survive. You cannot escape your hunger. Warriors of Purgatory.
Ladies and gentlemen and Godslayers, welcome back to a run that I have done once before on this channel but felt like doing again. That's why Reincarnated is in the title, in case you're wondering. The reason I decided to do it again is because the old run is in this format, and I feel like it doesn't deserve to be stuck like that and unlisted. So today I am here to once again answer the question, can you beat Digital Devil Saga with only your starting mantra lines? In Digital Devil Saga, characters learn new skills through these things called mantra. Each mantra has its own set of skills that it provides, so for example, the Ice Master mantra provides you with Bufudyne and Ice Amp. Unlike SMT Nocturne, you don't gain these skills by leveling up. You gain them through the Atma points bar, and you can put them in reserve and swap them out on the fly without getting rid of them. Upon opening the mantra grid, you will notice that the characters aren't tied to specific lines. So for instance, you can have a magic focused character like Argilla master the physical lines, even though she puts little points into the strength stat, and the same is also true for physical focused characters. You can have them master the magic lines even though they put little points into the magic stat. You may also notice that every character has innate resistance to one element, but they also have a weakness to another. Surf, for instance, has an innate resistance to ice attacks, but is weak to fire. Because of that, you're going to want to master the fire line with him so that he can get the passive skill Fire Resist to cover his weakness. But what if you couldn't do that? What if you couldn't have a magic focused character master physical lines and vice versa? And what if you couldn't master a line to cover your character's weakness? What if every character was tied to the lines they start with? This is the main focus of the run if it wasn't already obvious. Every character is going to be stuck with the mantra lines they start with upon joining the party. For example, Surf starts off with the Hunt/Physical and Ice lines, so for the entire game, Surf can only learn skills from those lines. One thing you may have noticed is that some lines branch off. For instance, Argilla automatically masters the Protection mantra before the tutorial fight, and when that happens, it unlocks the Ailment line. Because the lines branch off, using them is allowed. He also has this going for him. He automatically masters the Shura mantra and thus unlocks another part of the physical mantra line, and he also unlocks another branch later on. Bottom line, any mantra lines that branch off like this are allowed to be used by the party members that unlock them. Well, now that we have all the semantics and rules out of the way, we watch the intro cutscene, make a new save file, and have now officially started the run. Upon booting into the game, we see the Embryon and the Vanguard's tribe duking it out. Moments later, they both warn each other to remove the giant butt plug in the middle of the battlegrounds. I am so sorry, that's literally what it looks like. Before anyone can get another word in, the plug explodes, causing everyone to go apeshit and tear each other apart. We wake up to the aftermath and find demonetization where the butt plug once stood. Curious about who this girl is, we decide to take her with us and head to the Vanguards to see if they know anything about her or why we went apeshit. But all Harley has to say is that we committed cannibalism against his men, which causes him and Argilla to gain their eye color. Then we get into a fight with these three ghouls, who are thankfully very easy. Random encounters are turned on after you defeat them, but unlike SMT Nocturne, that isn't an issue here. After chasing Harley into a corner, Heat asks him why he doesn't know shit, which activates his eye color, and he throws him against a window, making him go crazy and turn into zebra nipple arms. Iagriva, like the entire dungeon, is very easy. He has a weakness to ice and specializes in fire attacks. Because of that, you're going to want to have Heat master his mantra before the fight so that he can gain Void Fire, which completely invalidates the zebra's moveset. Once you get to the halfway point, he begins to throw up Void Ice. When he does, have Surf revert to human form. In the dungeon, there is a treasure on the first floor that contains the Charge Shot. The Charge Shot is an ammo type with 24 attack power that has a chance to shock enemies, which can grant free critical hits. When you obtain it, be sure to give it to Surf, because his gun is the most powerful out of everyone's. Once Surf is in human form, have him shoot at Iagriva, and if he inflicts him with shock, put the game on auto battle, and soon enough, zebra nipple arms will be no more. Coming to the conclusion that Harley didn't know anything, we head back to base where we see Argilla going pink due to her not committing cannibalism. We then hear boss music where Gale is trying to eat Cielo, but luckily for him, Demonetization Girl from the butt plug saves him with her song. Her name is Sarah, and that song of hers is the only thing that she and everyone else seems to remember. Before we can learn anything more, all the tribe leaders are called to the Karma Temple in Sahasrara. When the meeting starts, this woman named Angel says that demonic cannibalism is the only way to survive, and the winning tribe must bring Sarah if they want to go see her Nirvana concert. After the meeting, we are granted access to the mantra grid, so I buy Surf the Ice Demon mantra and Heat the Fire Demon. When we head back to base to discuss our plans, we come to the conclusion that we lack manpower, so we decide to align ourselves with the Maribel tribe without betraying them. Why I said that will be answered in DDS 2. Once again, Surf, Heat, and Argilla are the only party members we'll have access to for the next dungeon, as Gale and Cielo are staying behind to watch over Sarah. We head to the Maribel's base, where their leader Janana and Argilla have the best conversation in SMT history.
Are you sad?
What is sad?
I'm not sure. You just seem that way.
Many of us have died due to this unexplained power. If my reaction is sad, then yes, I am sad.
Woo! Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about. Woo!
Janana says that we must get to the end of the dungeon where she'll be in order to prove ourselves worthy enough to align ourselves with her tribe. Manipura is just Svadhisthana 2.0 with the only difference being tougher enemies. The first of many mini-bosses is against these two Preda and one Ghoul. All three of them are weak to fire, so use Heat's Agi to get extra turns. I would also recommend reverting him to human form so that he can use the Fire Shot combo with Surf and Argilla, which hits every enemy on the field. Argilla finally masters the Earth Spirit mantra, which gives her Terra and Void Earth, the former being especially important for later. Up next is 4 Preda and 1 Yaka. You can revert Heat to human form if you want to use Fire Shot, but I don't really recommend that because the Yaka has an immunity to fire and can also cast Void Fire, so I recommend using Surf to take him out with his Bufu, and the Preda should soon follow as well, because they're very weak. I go to a Karma Terminal and buy Argilla the Earth Shrine mantra so that she can get her first multi-target Earth attack as well as Earth Boost, the latter being important for later as well. The third forced encounter is against these 3 Matcha. Unlike the prior 2 bosses, we start this battle out in human form, but that's to their detriment instead of ours because they just so happen to be weak to gun attacks, which can only be accessed in human form, so you can guess how this ends. He and most notably Surf master their mantras just in time for the 4th and final forced encounter. The first part consists of 4 Yaka who can be easily dealt with by spamming Babufu. When they die, this Gyuiki, who's weak to Earth, comes in as a reinforcement. You can use Terra if you want to, but I highly recommend reverting Argilla to human form so that you can spam the Earthshot combo with everyone. This fight nearly killed me because towards the end I run out of revival items and he kills everyone except for Surf, but somehow, someway, I'm able to finish him off with the power of gun. We get to the end of the dungeon, and instead of fighting Janana, she sends out her purple-haired right-hand man, Bat, who turns into a bat demon. Wow, what a shocker. Camazotz is a big difficulty jump compared to the 4 bosses we fought prior. He has a chance to inflict panic via Raving Slash, and he can hit everyone with Spiral Edge, though he seems to favor casting Rage, attacking you, and going into a guarding stance. When he's in the guarding stance, he gains an Earth weakness, but don't think you can revert Argilla to human form to capitalize on it because hitting him with Earth will knock him out of it. When he's not guarding, hit him with any physical attacks you may have with you, such as Surf's Health Thrust and Heat's Venom Claw. Unfortunately, both of them go down, and due to the lack of ways to revive them, I have to solo the fight with Argilla, which thankfully goes in my favor. Janana agrees to help us out and leads us to the Solids base in Anahata. Thanks to the distraction, we are able to sneak into the base. Random encounters are turned off for right now, so loot every room you possibly can. After doing that, you'll run into these 2 Archangels who go down with the combination of Mabufu, Miragi, and a lucky crit from Argilla. Random encounters are turned on after that, but thankfully most enemies in this dungeon are weak to either Earth or Fire, making it easier for Surf to devour enemies to level up his mantras faster. In the room next to the big terminal, we fall in a hole thanks to the Redite statue that was staring us down. The enemies down here are tougher than the ones upstairs, so be careful. Heading up the ladder, we see these two statues facing each other in front of a door. In order to proceed past them, we have to find 2 keys to turn their eyes from red to blue. The first key holder is Valkyrie, who has Power Wave, which is an all-target physical attack, Raving Slash, and Counter Strike. Fortunately, she doesn't have a lot of health, and Heat poisons her with Venom Claw, so we take our win, giving us the left statue key. The second key holder is Tarask, who goes down with Bufula and Terra, giving us the right statue key and allowing us to proceed to Mixed Throne Room, only to get ambushed and told that Bat snitched on us, and the Turdak shouts,
"Feeding time!"
First, you have to deal with 2 Akusa hordes who are weak to wind, so if you have any wind attack items like the Sonic Stone on you, now would be a good time to use those. Otherwise, Heat's Vile Blade and Surf's Venom Fig will suffice for these 2 hordes, as well as the third one with the Turdak. When we get to the end of the dungeon, we see Mick just beating on Janana and throws her like a ragdoll and pieces out. Damn. Finding out that she hasn't been eating anyone like Argilla was in Svadhisthana, she goes berserk, forcing us to fight her demon form Usas. Usas, for the most part, is very easy. Her whirlwind attack does next to nothing, and Marin Karen doesn't land a single time. The main concern of this fight is her expel attacks, specifically her combo skill Seraphita, which reduces your HP by 4/5 of your current total. This would be a problem if it wasn't for the fact that it eats up 2 press turns, and if you revert one party member to human form, in my case Surf, we can just block that shit and make Usas and the unicorns that she summons lose their 1 remaining press turn they would have if it wasn't blocked. She resists everything except for Earth, Physical, and Gun, so Surf can shoot his gun, he can use Death Spray, which does a shit ton of damage by the way, and Argilla can attack with Terra and heal with Medea when she needs to, so if you keep up this rhythm, Usas should go down in no time. Following Janana's death and Heat getting bitch slapped, we head back to Manipura where Gale shows up and joins the party. Gale starts off with what Argilla started off with, except he has Wind instead of Earth and also has access to the Death Line. Before going any further, I buy him the Fallen Hero mantra so that I can get another multi-target healer on the field, and I also buy 10 landmines at the vendor. Heading further in, the Solids surround us, and then Bat shows up to tell us that we fell into a trap and wants a rematch. Camazot's round 2 is mostly the same as his first fight, except he can now summon 2 Baphomets who can insta-kill you with Mudo and Mudun. Unfortunately for him, another change makes that completely irrelevant. Remember how in the first fight he would go out of his guarding stance upon getting hit with Earth? Well, in round 2, he doesn't leave the guarding stance even if you do hit him with Earth, which makes this fight a complete joke. Realizing that Bat knows about Sarah, Heat makes a break for Mu and Hara, leaving Surf, Argilla, and Gale to escape Manipura on their own, and to get out this time, we have to complete it in reverse. The random encounters here are mostly just the ones from Anahata, so they're not too problematic, fortunately. And once again, just like the first visit, we have to fight more mini-bosses. Up first are the 3.5 hordes of Kelpie. The worst they can do to you is put you into a coma or use Mauzionga as a combo attack, which for Gale is awful because he's weak to it. Use Surf's Venom Fang since that does more damage than Frost Breath and Mabufu. Use Argilla for healing and Gale for whatever. The reason I said 3.5 hordes is because the last horde is just 1 Kelpie who goes down after 1 Bufula and 1 Zanma. On our way to the next worst encounter, we run into this Omaikane. Omaikane is a rare encounter who has immunity to everything except for Gun, and will always cast Debilitate every chance he gets. Fighting these guys is more trouble than it's worth because you almost have no time to revert to human form and kill him because he runs away before you can even damage him. And if you do manage to damage him, it doesn't really matter because him running away gives you nothing. Up next is 4.5 Nue hordes. I say that for the same reason I said it for the Kelpie hordes. They can cast Blood Curse, which only affects you if you deal damage, but it also gives you a higher probability of getting insta-killed by the Mabudu combo. Fortunately, we're able to take them out before they even have a chance to do that. Up next are the Onkad hordes, and you can guess how this one ends. We finally get to the exit of Manipura, where we have to take on Adavaka, who stands in the way of our freedom. Adavaka is weak to Earth, so I'm going to highly recommend reverting Argilla to human form so that we can perform the medium Earth combo Quake Shot. He also possesses the late game skill Executioner, which is mega physical damage, and as you can probably guess, it does a shitload of damage. He also has Mind Charge on top of Miragion, Mizanma, and Matarazi. However, he tends to use Executioner more often, and when he does go for Mind Charge, we are able to take him out before he can even capitalize off of it. When we get back to base, we see our comrades dead and blood splattered everywhere. Cielo fortunately lives to tell us that the Solids took Sarah to coordinate 136, and he becomes Jamaican in the same cutscene, and it's awesome.
The northern ruins at coordinate 136. I wanna come along too! I gotta redeem myself for all this!
Upon entering coordinate 136, Cielo escapes from base with the help of a cat. How does he know what the species of the animal is? Meanwhile, we are getting fed a story about two princes, one good and one evil, who are both in love with a princess whom possess special powers. When you get to the portrait of the princess, that for some reason looks like Sarah, she'll tell you to go find the portrait of the good prince so you can tell him her feelings, which unlocks the first part of the dungeon. This part is what I like to call Anahata 2.0. There are portraits of the evil prince scattered throughout, and if you step in front of them, you'll fall down to a lower floor. Fortunately, the maze is less confusing, and you can find the good prince very easily. Upon delivering the message to the good prince and delivering his message to the princess, she opens the way to the second floor where we are accosted by the Hee-Ho bros, who tell us that Mick and Bat are at the top with Sarah and... well...
Hee-Ho! 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 Hey, Ho, how long are you gonna listen to our raps for free, Ho?
Jack Frost and Pyrojack are a part of the Fiend race in this game, which is something I don't want to think about. Jack Frost is able to heal off his and Pyrojack's damage with Mediorama, and is able to cover his weakness with Fire Drain. However, Pyrojack has no way to cover his ice weakness, so we take him out first, and then start pounding Jack Frost with Heat's Fire Breath, which he learned from the Fire Leader mantra, which he mastered upon rejoining the party. When we get to the third floor, this is actually when we find out that the evil prince was also in love with the princess, and he often interfered with the princess's love for the good prince, but no matter what he did, she was still in love with the good prince. Wow, this guy got turned out harder than the female social links in Persona. Damn. This opens up the next part of the dungeon where we have to shine the light of the princess statue on the good prince, all while avoiding the evil prince statue. You have to do this 3 times, each time getting more and more complicated, and after finishing those, another broadcast comes on telling us that the princess was captured and both princes went to rescue her, and the evil prince out of hatred challenged the good prince to a duel, which we have to make happen by making the platform with the good prince meet the evil prince, which is at the top. This part can be very confusing since you have to choose the right platform that takes you to a switch that changes where the platform with the good prince goes. And finally, after damn near 20 minutes of trying to figure out which platform I had to ride, we get the last broadcast that cannot be fully comprehended, but long story short, the evil prince turned out to be the good prince and vice versa, and the truly evil prince kills the truly good prince, making the princess depressed to the point where the world falls into an age of darkness. Why do I get the feeling that the story will somehow be relevant again? Before we can try to comprehend that question, Heat punches a hole in the wall and activates a puzzle. How convenient. The final puzzle of the dungeon is a combination of the previous puzzle and the light mirror puzzle from earlier. Thankfully, it isn't as confusing and we're able to finish it in under 5 minutes. Before going any further, I use one of the platforms to obtain the yellow key. This is one of the special keys that the game has you hunt for. You may have noticed that every dungeon has these colored walls scattered throughout, and the only way to destroy them is if you have the key that corresponds to its color. So if the wall is yellow, you need the yellow key to destroy it. Most of them usually lead to the many optional bosses the game has, but those won't be relevant for a while. I buy Surf the Holy Beast module, which literally has a skill called Consume, and we finally make it to the top where Heat does the anime elbows up pose and... God damn it, Heat. Bat tells Heat that if he wants Sarah back, he has to turn on us, which we hesitate to do, but we have to fight him regardless. This encounter only lasts like a few seconds, and Sarah, not knowing we're staging the fight, frees herself from Mick's grasp and tries to pull off Persona 5's April 15th incident, but is unsuccessful. She then brings out the base boost so that Meg drops her, but back catches her. Then Cielo shoots a ray of light and rescues her. Meg, realizing that he's fucked, tries to escape, but we're able to surround him, forcing him to transform into his demon form, Rahu. For this fight, you're going to want to bring along Gale and Heat because Rahu's body is weak to fire, and his head is weak to force. Yes, they are two separate entities. His most dangerous skill is Dragon Quake, a medium earth attack to all targets, but the main gimmick of the fight involves his head. His head will use the skill Dragon Thrash, which imprisons one target and slowly drains that unit's HP with each passing press turn, until that unit dies or enough damage is dealt to the head. If it happens to Surf or Heat, it's no big deal since you can easily get more actions through weakness exploitation. If it happens to Gale, well, you're going to need to hit the head with Bufula since that's the only element, aside from Force, that it doesn't resist, and hope that you'll be able to get him out before he dies. Once the head is destroyed, I'm able to focus on the body and can finally use fire bombs with Surf and Gale. The reason I didn't start using them until now is because they're all target and the head is immune to fire, so I'd be losing turns if I used them while the head was still alive. But now that I'm able to, Rahu's body soon follows. Cielo gives Sarah to us and we tell her that we are comrades, to which Gale says,
I do not comprehend.
Fucking brilliant. Cielo joins the party and oh boy, what he has access to makes him a staple in the party. He has access to electricity, revive magic, death, expel, and most importantly, boost magic. This alone is what makes him a staple because he's the only one who has access to any form of buffs and reliable debuffs. The only other debuff we had access to up until now was Heat's Taunt, which decreases an enemy's defense by 2 levels, but raises their attack by 2 levels, which is a death sentence when using it against a boss. Knowing that Bat and the Brutes are inevitably going to try and capture Sarah again, we decide to use an abandoned ship to lure them in and trap them. Do note, once you head inside the ship, you won't be able to leave until the mission is complete, so before I head in, I head back to Seraphita to pick up the blue key, which becomes obtainable after defeating Harley, and I buy Cielo the Karma Mantra. Once we head inside the ship, we come up with the brilliant idea to commit an act of terrorism and blow up the ship. Heat takes Sarah to an undisclosed location, and we have Argilla disguise herself as Sarah so that we can bait the Brutes, and Cielo has some interesting criticisms.
Okay, this seriously won't work.
Why is that?
Obviously, Sarah isn't this tall, her hair is way different, and her arms ain't that thick. Ooh!
Well, excuse me.
Now that the Brutes have arrived, we have to go plant bombs on all floors of the ship, going from bottom to top. After planting the first bomb, you'll be forced into an encounter with 3 Naga who are weak to fire. Unfortunately, we don't have Heat right now, but Surf's Mabufula is a good substitute. Random encounters are turned on after this battle, so be sure you looted everything you possibly could. The random encounters here are easy, as that's because all 8 possible enemies are either weak to wind, elect, or gun. The most notable encounter is Chatterskull. If you get into an encounter with him, kill it as quickly as you can before it nukes you with Death March. Up next are these 2 towns who are weak to Earth, but we don't have Argilla. Thankfully, they go down after 2 Mabufulas and 1 Mazionga. Once we get to the 5th floor, Surf masters the Holy Beast mantra, giving us access to Iron Stomach, which is a passive skill that prevents a stomachache. Unfortunately, he is the only one who can learn it because the only other party member who has access to any form of Devour skills is Heat, who does have a line labeled as Hunt/Physical, but it isn't the same line that Surf has access to, thus not being able to learn it. I buy Surf the Ice Master mantra, which, as I mentioned at the start of the video, gives us Bufudyne and Ice Amp, and head to the 8th floor where we are accosted by 3 Suiki, who can use Bufudyne as a combo skill. But if you bring in any form of ice immunity, this fight is a complete joke, and they won't be able to put a scratch on you outside of Power Wave. Cielo masters the Karma mantra, which finally gives us Rakukaja and Tsukukaja, so I buy him the Cherubim mantra, which will give us access to reliable defense debuffs. After planting the 8th and final bomb, we are ambushed by 3 Chatterskulls who do put up somewhat of a fight, but again, very easy. Now that all the bombs are planted, we head to the 9th floor where we see Argilla and Bat still duking it out, so we decide to jump down to them and join in on the fight. Camazot's round 3 is nothing like rounds 1 and 2. For starters, his moveset has seen a really big shakeup. The only moves he retains from his first 2 fights are Rage, Psycho Rage, Zanma, Guard, and Spiral Edge. New to his moveset are Curse, Power Charge, Winds of Hell, Dekunda, and his most infamous and annoying skill, Zotsula Habane. Zotsula Habane is, no pun intended, the bane of every SMT challenge runner's existence. It inflicts one target with a unique bat status that can only be cleansed through time, and while a unit is inflicted with bat, their max HP is cut in half, their defense is weaker, and they gain a force weakness, which is also when Camazotz decides to start using Winds of Hell. But he may also go for Spiral Edge, which he can buff with Power Charge. And to make your day worse, he will almost always use Psycho Rage followed up with Zotsula Habane, just so that he can inflict everyone. If you manage to grab Rakukaja and Tsukukaja with Cielo, be sure to bring those in, as it reduces your chances of getting one shot in bat form. I would also recommend bringing in Tarunda because his basic attack does hit hard, and it will also reduce the incoming damage from Spiral Edge should he ever use it, but in my attempt, he always used Winds of Hell. Well, there's not much more I could say about this fight other than just bring in any force immunity you can and keep spamming him with Earth when he's guarding until he rolls over. After witnessing Bat get blown up, we head to the Embryon's second base where he and Sarah, moving on. We find out that the Solids joined the Brutes despite us defeating them, and the Brutes also took down the Wolves tribe. Then we receive word that the leader of the Wolves wants us to meet him at Svadhisthana. Before you head to Svadhisthana, do be sure to buy Heat and Argilla a mantra since they mastered whatever mantra they had equipped upon rejoining the party. After going through an alternate exit in Svadhisthana, we meet up with the Wolves leader Lupa, who tells us that he'll give us head in return for helping him take out the Brutes, which leads us into the Samsara tunnels. While walking around the sewers, he informs us that Varen disregarded the power of friendship and took out the Wolves entirely by himself, and Sarah will be our only way to defeat him. He then goes ahead of us and transforms into his double trigger form, Cerberus, to take out any Brutes that get in our way. The random encounters here mostly consist of returning enemies from the deserted ship, and the new enemies aren't anything special either. Surf masters the Ice Master mantra, finally giving us access to our first heavy-hitting magic move, and our first amp skill, and Gale also masters the Kichijio mantra, so I buy him the Calm Spirit mantra, which will give us Mediarama. And thank God too, because holy shit, Medea doesn't heal enough. And later on, Cielo masters the Cherubim mantra, finally giving us Rakunda. The only mandatory fights here are against Asuiki and Fuki, and one of those encounters includes both of them along with Kinki. Now that we have Heat with us, Suiki can feel the burn, Fuki is weak to electricity, and Kiki is weak to earth. However, the one encounter that does include Kinki comes after you go through this bullshit. This bullshit puzzle is something you should just look up or figure out yourself if you're a big enough masochist. The most common encounter, if not the only encounter, is Isora, who is weak to force and lightning. After you defeat an Isora encounter, there is a chance that Fornius will show up. Unfortunately for him, he is weak to electricity like he is in Nocturne, so he shouldn't be able to last one turn. When we finally get out of the water, we see many of the Brutes that Lupa tore up. I put that in air quotes because, do they really look tore up to you? On our way to the exit, I find yet another water puzzle that you should definitely look up because this one involves turning a valve. If you manage to get through, you'll be rewarded with a red key, which will allow us to fight a boss coming later. When we get to the exit, Lupa corners us and is glowing red because, like Janana, he refused to eat anyone, hence why we sawed the dead Brutes, and now we must fight him. Cerberus is a unique fight as each of his heads give him one press turn, and each head has its own skill set. The right head focuses on buffs and debuffs, the center head is the attacker, and the left head is the healer, and all heads drain fire. The party I chose for this fight was Surf, Heat, and Gale. Surf's boosted ice attacks are essential for dealing with all the heads, since it's the only element that none of them resist. Heat's Ki Blast will be able to deal with the left and right heads, and Gale is only here to provide healing since he has Mediarama. Now, as I just mentioned, each head has its own set of skills. The center head is by far the most dangerous out of the three, with it having power charge, mind charge, and heavy hitting attacks, most notably Rend, a heavy physical attack. The right head also has Rend, but it isn't as big of a threat since it doesn't have power charge, and both the left and center head have counter strike, which for heat is bad news. Where the center head having mind charge becomes dangerous is when it initiates one of the two combo skills Cerberus has access to, Phlegathon and Pyri-Phlegathon. Phlegathon is heavy fire damage to all targets, and Pyri-Phlegathon is mega fire damage. In order for Pyri-Phlegathon to be used, all three heads have to be alive, and he will only use Phlegathon if one of the heads goes down. If you're wondering why I'm not showing any footage of this, that's because he didn't use either skills in my attempt, because I was able to take out the left and right head that quickly thanks to Heat's Ki Blast. If you want a recommendation on which head you should take out first, I'd recommend the right head since it has Ice Repel, which completely invalidates why I brought Surf into the fight. After it goes down, what head you prioritize doesn't matter. Do note, if you leave the center head for last, it will start casting Psycho Rage, which can put you in a bad spot if he spams you with Power Charge Rend or a Mind Charge Fire attack. Other than that, keep hitting him with Surf's amped up Bufudyne, and Cerberus should soon be euthanized. Gale unfortunately has to kill Lupa, but before he dies, he tells Gale to tell his child to become a man of honor. And it's here where Gale finally gains his eye color.
Be you angel or demon, you will surely regret giving me this cursed power!
Exiting the sewer, we can finally confront the brutes at their home base in Ajna. I buy Surf the Ice God Launcher for Jesus Christ, and head inside where we hear an audio recording coming from a picture about Sarah and everyone hanging out at the beach, which makes no sense considering that there aren't any beaches around here last I checked. Ajna is a shape-shifting dungeon with these 3 pixelated floating crystals, and the main goal is to defeat the 3 bosses that reside in each part of the mansion. Up first is Kotoplapas, who is the hardest and most bullshit mini-boss I have ever faced in this game, and if you're wondering why, yep, he can stone you and will make sure to capitalize off of it by hitting any stone targets with a basic attack to insta-kill them. Gate of Hell is the most dangerous thing he has since it's multi-target and can stone everyone. There was even a time when he killed Gale while he was stoned, then casted Gate of Hell and stoned both Cielo and Heat, and if every unit on the field is stoned, it's as if everyone died. Oh, and this fucker's weakness is fire, which is horrible because his magic stat is so low that he's doing as much as Surf was doing in Anahata. After 3 attempts, I remember one crucial tiny detail. Stone is death type, and as long as I have a unit cast Void Death, Kotoplapas cannot stone us even if he uses Gate of Hell. So before I go in for my 4th attempt, I bring in Void Death, which makes this fight so much easier. Though I still reduce his attack because Gate of Hell still does a decent amount of damage, but other than that, this fight is finally over with. Second in line is... Thesis. It's close enough, okay? Thesis is the definition of copying off of someone else. Whatever moves you use, she'll use right back at you. So if you use ice, she'll use ice. She will also summon more of herself, which is more of an inconvenience than a threat, so she doesn't last much longer. The third and final mini-boss of the dungeon is Nidhogger. Nidhogger absorbs ice because of course he does, so I tag out Surf for Heat. His main gimmick is summoning smaller versions of himself that he eats after a couple of turns with his skill that is literally called Cannibalize. In case you somehow weren't convinced that this game was about demonic cannibalism, I think a skill with that name is proof enough. Unfortunately for him, he focuses a little too heavily on eating his smaller counterparts because by the time he grows to full size, he's already in the red, and after he casts Megidolon, he goes down after one last Pterodyne. After defeating all 3 mini-bosses, a 4th pixelated crystal will show up at the mansion's entrance. When you activate it and go through the doors, you'll be teleported to different parts of the dungeon. Unlike the last 3 parts, all doors are interconnected and is once again a teleporting door puzzle. Make that the 4th time I've had to deal with one. And after some process of elimination, we finally get to the main boss of the dungeon, Ravana.
Well, nothing upstairs.
Ravana's first phase can be annoying if it's your first time fighting him. For the first phase, he's invisible and you have to find where he is. Sarah will help you figure out which of the 6 possible positions he's at. If she says center or to the right, that eliminates positions 1 and 2. If she says he's somewhere on the right, then that eliminates positions 1, 2, 3, and 4. Once you manage to hit him, he will be visible, so capitalize off of that as much as you can. Also, don't think you can cheese the fight with multi-target attacks, because you will miss every time, even if he is visible. Thankfully, he only has 1000 HP, so this phase doesn't last much longer. After you beat the first phase, Ravana shifts into his shell, which kinda reminds me of the Interactive Buddy, and oh boy, there is some shit to talk about. Ravana has every attack from his first form and gains Ki Blast, Dekunda Dekaja, and his 2 most infamous skills, Infinite Wind and Hunger Wave. Infinite Wind is an all-target Mega Force attack that he will always cast to follow up the one and only Hunger Wave. Hunger Wave has a 65% chance to inflict a unit with the unique Hunger status, and because it's a unique status, much like Bat, you can't cleanse it naturally. The only way to cleanse it is through Sarah, who will do so on 1 unit at the beginning of our turn, but who she cleanses is completely random. This one move puts the fight almost entirely out of our control, and he will always follow it up with Infinite Wind with his next available action, and since Hunger Wave makes it so that we can't attack, we can't deal damage to him ourselves. And with that statement lies the answer to that problem. Since Ravana will always use Infinite Wind after Hunger Wave, he becomes somewhat predictable. If I can't damage him because of Hunger Wave, why don't I just repel the damage Infinite Wind would be doing to us right back at him? Yes, despite one of his signature skills being Wind type, no one thought to give him any form of wind resistance. So I equipped Gale with Force Repel and...
Now that's a lot of damage!
The only thing I have to worry about now is Gale getting inflicted with hunger, and if he does, I have to pray that Sarah cleanses him. There were a few times where Gale didn't get cleansed, and as a result we would get hit and be close to death, which made me shit myself, but we got lucky enough to not die. After another Wind Repel, Ravana is in the red and grabs his knee like Peter Griffin after he trips on the sidewalk, and 2 turns later, after one more Bufudyne, Ravana falls backwards. Varen, in his final moments, tells us that we are all humans who died in Nirvana and that Sarah is the key to everything. Then he dies in the funniest way possible.
That girl will destroy the world. She is truly a devil.
When we enter the room where the large terminal is supposed to be, we see a hallucination of Sarah, and Cielo comes across the cat that helped him out earlier and realizes that was the first cat he ever saw and somehow knew what it was, and the rest of the party point out that they remember places like Coordinate 136 and Ajna even though that shouldn't be possible. Despite knowing all of this, we say it doesn't matter since it won't change our course of action. Now that the war is over and the Embryon have reigned supreme, the gates to Nirvana are now open and we must head to Sazrar to ascend. But before we do that, there are some things I want to get done. Digital Devil Saga has a good amount of side bosses, most of them dropping hidden mantras that I can't use, so what's the point in doing them? Well, if you transfer your DDS1 save to DDS2, you'll get rewards in that game for doing them. I'll explain what they are when we actually get to DDS2, so for now, let's focus on DDS1. The first side boss I do is in Coordinate 136. If you enter after defeating Mick, you'll see one of the Hee-Ho bros floating in front of a giant treasure chest, and if we want to unlock it, we have to find the key that goes to it. Heading upstairs, we come across Titania, who says she's going to shove the sugar key in our ass, so we better kill her quickly. Thankfully for us and our asshole, she goes down after 2 skull cleaves. After obtaining the sugar key, we give it to Pyrojack, who proceeds to take everything inside the chest. What a prick! Well, now that that's over with, I head to the top where we previously fought Mick to take on King Frost. King Frost is a very tanky boss, and unlike his counterpart in SMT4 Apocalypse, he has no weakness to fire. However, the Jack Frost he summons with Celestial Gift are, so bringing in heat is still viable, but I recommend bringing in Surf because of King Frost's medium ice move, Cocytus, which has a 40% freeze chance and hits 5 to 8 times. To mitigate that, I bring in Void Ice. Unfortunately, King Frost's AI is smart enough to see you throw up an ice shield, so he'll use anything but ice. Most notably, he'll cast his heavy almighty skill Frost Rush, which is actually preferable to getting frozen, because with our maximized defense and the fact that he likes Dukunda and Dekaja, it deals little damage, so all we have to do is debuff his accuracy, buff up our accuracy and defense, and keep swinging on him with Xandyne and Zeodyne until he's dethroned. If there are any Jack Frost still on the field, then you have to take them out to end the fight, but thankfully they aren't a threat in the slightest. Beating this fight, Heat masters the Violent God mantra, giving him Power Charge, which is going to be a godsend for another side boss. The next side boss is his Svadhisthana. If you picked up the red key in the sewers, you're going to be using it to unlock another part of the Vanguard's base. Do note that since this part of the Svadhisthana is meant to be accessed after going through Samsara, the random encounters here will actually put up a fight. Members of the Vanguards tell us that there is a demon down here that began devouring everyone, so they cut the power to starve him. But we intend to fight whoever is down there, and after turning the power back on, we're able to face the demon, Beelzebub in his Fred Flintstone form. Beelzebub is similar to his fight in Nocturne, where he resists every magic attack except for fire. However, instead of resisting them, he is just outright immune to them. One upside to this is that he has no resistance to physical, which thank God, because Heat's magic capabilities is goddamn nothing. But despite that, he is still able to nuke us with double Megidolon. Realizing that this fight is a bitch, I went out and grinded hard and mastered so many mantras, most notably the Dark Leader mantra with Surf, which gives him Mind Charge, Megidola, Magic Repel, and most importantly, Last Word. Last Word is a severe almighty attack that I'm never removing, and if you use it with Mind Charge, it'll deal a shit ton of damage and make you almost unstoppable. After obtaining those two skills, I go back to challenge Beelzebub once again, and yeah, this fight goes by uneventfully. After defeating Fred Flintstone, we head back to Manipura, where a secret part of the base is now open. This leads to a separate part of the Samsara tunnels, and in order to get to the boss down here, we have to go through another goddamn water pump puzzle. And after getting out of that, we come across a large terminal right outside the door where the boss is, and that boss is Beelzebub in his fly form. And Beelzebub is a bitch. Beelzebub in his fly form is a bigger bitch in this game than he is in SMT Nocturne. No, I am not exaggerating. His basic attack hits like a freight train and has a high crit chance, and when he's taking around 4,000 damage is when he decides to start trying and brings out the big guns, such as Mind Scream, which has a 15% stun chance, Power Charge, Mahamon, Mamudun, Megidolon, and of course, you can't forget Death Flies, which functions like it did in Nocturne. It insta-kills anyone not immune to death. Now, your first thought might be, well, you just need the grind of Cielo and Gale so that they get Null Death, right? For Cielo, that's true, but Gale can't learn Null Death, all because he doesn't have access to the Expel line, which is required to unlock the Evil God mantra. With my current level and skill sets, I figure out that this fight is just not happening, so I decide to put it off and head to Anahata and enter the Samsara tunnels through that way, and after going through, you gotta be fucking kidding me, we come across the 8-headed snake, Yamato no Orochi. Orochi, first things first, has 8 press turns, 1 for each head, but thankfully, unlike Cerberus, he is one entity. But him being one entity doesn't make the fight any less difficult. On his first turn, he will spam buff Makakaja and then cast either Foul Breath, Megidola, or both if he has enough press turns. My recommendation to you is to cast a buff and debuff with Cielo, that way he'll waste 2 turns peeling them off, and equip Gale with Null Poison. On paper, this setup should work, but in execution, it's still not enough. We have no way of peeling his magic buffs outside of Makanda, which is unreliable, and he also has Rakunda, which he will cast 4 times to fully debuff our defense, and if he has enough press turns, he will cast Megidola, which is just a guaranteed one-shot. After getting a basic idea of what he does following many failed attempts, I finally relent on being overpowered in the skills department and decide to grind until Cielo masters 2 crucial mantras, Evil God and Insane God. Evil God provides us with Debilitate, Null Expel, and Null Death. All of these are going to be absolutely necessary, especially Debilitate. And finally, Insane God provides us with Xanadu, a heavy expel attack, Dekaja, and Dekunda. The latter 2 skills making Orochi significantly easier. Now that I know what needs to be done, I turn up the game's speed and begin grinding right next to the snake because I refuse to leave the tunnels and go through the pump puzzle again. The only notable encounter isn't the normal encounters, it's Samael, who is almost guaranteed to follow up whatever encounter you're in. The worst he can do to you is spam Revelation, which is physical damage with a chance to mute, and he can throw up magic and Fizz Repel. However, he has a weakness to Poison and Mute, so be sure to equip Gale with Foul Breath so that we can gain extra turns, and have Surf use Mind Charge Mabufadine to deal good damage. If he gets inflicted with poison, he is more than guaranteed to die after taking 2 actions. That's literally all I do for 4 hours until Cielo masters both the God Mantras, and with that, I equip him with Debilitate, Dekaja, and Dekunda, and walk up to show Orochi a proper rematch. Instead of bringing in Null Poison, I give Gale Void Poison, that way we can block Foul Breath, but like King Frost, Orochi is smart enough to see you throw up shields and will opt to use Megidola after casting Makakaja 4 times. When it becomes our second turn, the first thing we do is peel away his buffs with Dekaja, that way we won't have to worry about getting one shot if he casts Rakunda. But he never casts Rakunda and instead uses single target magic, then proceeds to keep spamming Mad Rush because he only has 240 MP, so he tends to run out of it really quickly. But the catch is he is able to use MP Thief. However, it's classified as a mute skill, so Gale can block it with Null Mute, but at the same time, Cielo is weak to all ailments, so Orochi can farm extra turns off him. Normally this would be an issue, but he is so hell-bent on using Mad Rush that we just keep dodging and spamming him with Divine Charge Last Word, so like Beelzebub's human form, this fight ends uneventfully. Defeating Orochi unlocks a separate part of the Ajna base. The only enemy you can encounter here is Horus, who is weak to gun, so revert Surf to human form and blast him away. At the top floor, you'll see a dead girl on the ground where you can obtain the Red Rig, something you are going to need for later. Since I now have Debilitate, I decide to head back to Samsara in Manipura to rematch the Lord of the Flies. At first, I bring Surf into the fight because of Mind Charge and Last Word, but towards the end of a failed attempt, I swapped him out for Heat, and it's then that I figured out that Beelzebub's Fly form also doesn't have physical resistance. So when that attempt ends, I make sure to swap out Surf for Heat, and when we get Heat to +4 attack power, and Beelzebub to -4 to everything, just those numbers alone is what made me shift my strategy entirely. I make sure to bring Void Death in with Gale because casting that ensures Beelzebub will use Deathflies less often. I also opt to bring Cielo in with it as well because if Gale has to heal, I can rest easy knowing that I have another unit who can cast Death Immunity. Even with all of that though, this fight still comes down to luck. One thing you still have to look out for is the stun chance from Mind Scream, however, not all stuns will give him the high ground. If Cielo or Gale gets stunned, it isn't that big of an issue since they're just there for support. But if Heat gets stunned, cure it as soon as possible. I'm gonna highly recommend buying a bunch of medical kits from the vendor because knowing that there will be scenarios where Gale can't heal, you can at least have a character heal for a fixed but decent amount. In spite of that, I would only use them if it guarantees a full heal so that Gale can conserve some MP, and Heat can recover the HP he loses from using Executioner. Trust me, you are going to need full HP because Deathflies does a shit ton of damage, since Beelzebub will make sure to either peel away your buffs, peel away his debuffs, or boost his magic if his magic capabilities is at neutral. 2 moves I've neglected to mention up until now is Mazandine and Maziodyne. Mazandine is more of an inconvenience than a threat, but Maziodyne is a threat. All because Gale is weak to it, and if he gets hit by it, that gives Beelzebub more room to deal heavy amounts of damage, thus possibly ending your run. Luckily, that doesn't happen to me, and after one more basic attack from Heat, the Lord of the Flies is finally squashed. Beating Beelzebub allows you to enter a part of the Hara base that we couldn't before. When you head further in, you'll come across 3 floating treasures that contain the Tyrant Skull, the Murder Rock, an infinite use of Mamudun, and the best ammo type in the game, Magatama. Taking the Tyrant Skull to any Karma Terminal unlocks the High Priest mantra, which would give us access to Deathflies and Repel element, but... yeah. Now that all the side bosses so far have been defeated, we head to the Karma Temple to catch up to Sarah. However, we must get past these 2 guards who... Moving on. Near the entrance of the Karma Temple, you'll run into an ex-member of the Solids whose name is James Mason, and he tells us to find a girl named Amelia. This will also be relevant in DDS 2. After defeating 2 more temple guards, we see Sarah in the dissemination room summoning a platform to the elevator. Shortly after Sarah uses the elevator, we use the elevator, but it breaks down, landing us in the Sea of Milk where we have to fight Vasky. Vasky is a big joke, and that's thanks to his AI being smart enough to see you throw up a Void Shield, which in this case is Void Ice, because his most dangerous skill is Himalaya, which has a high freeze chance. However, if you cast Void Ice, you use Maziodyne, which does nothing to us. The reason I want to avoid the Wrath of the Himalayas is because his weakness is fire, and he is the only one who could use it, but since his weakness is ice, Vasky can get extra turns off of him. But if he isn't able to cast ice because his AI tells him not to because of an ice shield, then that's fine with me because either way, it works towards his detriment. Defeating the giant serpent allows us to begin our ascent of the tower. The random encounters here are your standard late game high level enemies, but with our overpowered movesets, that isn't an issue. While climbing, Heatmaster is arguably one of the best mantras in the game, the Destroyer mantra, which gives him Null Fizz, Life Surge, and Ragnarok, an almighty physical attack with a Rakunda effect. Further up the tower, we see a vision of Sarah that spawns the infamous final dungeon teleporter puzzle. Thankfully, this one isn't as complicated as the one in the Tower of Kagetsuchi in Nocturne, or Yahweh's Universe in 4 Apocalypse. After getting through the puzzle, we make our way on the outside of the tower where we have to fight Jatiyu and Garuda. Moving on, we have to go through yet another teleporter puzzle, but like the first time, it's not that hard, and we finally make it to Ananta, who delivers us a message Sarah left for us, and after our refusal to leave, he tries to fight us. Ananta has 7 press turns, 1 less than Orochi. Unlike Orochi, he is a complete joke. The first time you fight him, you'll consider Ananta a very annoying and unfair boss because of his ability to spam ailments, buff himself with Tarukaja 4 times, or spam heal with Dia. However, that isn't an issue at all because Argilla can null half of the ailments he can use, and if anyone else gets inflicted, she can just cure them. Also, him spamming Dia isn't an issue because I'm able to add damage it thanks to my charge last word, so you can guess how this fight ends. With Ananta defeated, no more bosses stand in the way between us and the final boss, but before I head through those doors, I head back down to complete the rest of the side quests. After defeating Ananta, more side bosses will unlock. When you talk to this member of the Embryon, he'll tell you that transmissions have been lost with Svadhisthana, Manipura, Anahata, and Ajna. I head to Manipura to take on Baihu first, who specializes in force, but he's hellbent on using physical, so you can guess how this ends. Up next, I head to Anahata to take on Gui Xian, who uses Earth and will either shit-talk you or argue amongst themselves, which is really funny. Another funny thing about this fight is he only uses Matera and Avalanche, even though he has access to Materadyne, which makes him the easiest boss of the 4 Holy Beasts. Up next, I head to Ajna to take on the 3rd Holy Beast, the one and only Huanglong Gaming.
Megiddo, that's Long.
Oh shit, you're right. Long specializes in ice, and unlike the last 2, he actually puts up a fight. He's the only one who has access to Debilitate, spams attack buffs, and will constantly use Mind Charge and Mabufudyne. Unfortunately for him, we have access to everything that can counter the buffs, so it isn't long until the dragon goes down. No pun intended. The last and final Holy Beast is Feng Wang in Svadhisthana. The only thing she has going for her is that she's the fire version of Wang, so the strategy is the same, but I recommend bringing in Fire Shield so that she spams physical attacks to lose turns to heat. Use the Kaja or Hee-Ho with Cielo, throw up Fire Shields or use Ragnarok with Heat, and use Last Word with Surf until this bird goes down. After you defeat the 4 Holy Beasts, 2 new bosses will be unlocked, one in Ajna and one in the Temple. Because I'm closer to the one in Ajna, I decide to fight him first. When you talk to these two girls outside the house, they will tell you about a demon with beautiful silver wings. And that demon is, you guessed it, the one and only Metatron, who wants to kill us because he believes we killed his girlfriend Laura, whom we got the red ring from. Metatron is thankfully nowhere near as threatening as his Nocturne counterpart, and with our ability to use Debilitate and being able to peel his buffs with Dekaja, he's just a complete joke. His physical attacks are blocked by heat, Megidolon does so little damage, and he doesn't use Fire of Sanai a single time. That's how fast we killed him. Defeating Metatron gives you the Seraph Quill. When you take it to Anti-Karma Terminal, it allows you to unlock the Gyokuza mantra, which imparts you with Fire of Sanai, Repel Expel, and Repel Death. Unfortunately, we can't use it for obvious reasons. Heading back to the entrance of the temple, a member of the Embryon talks of a rookie who ascended the temple. The rookie in question is the one and only Huanglong Gaming. Wait, hold on. Okay, I got it right. Huanglong is by far the hardest boss in a non-New Game Plus playthrough. Even with our overpowered skill sets, he is more than capable of whooping our ass, and boy, does he. For starters, he will always get to go first, which lets him decide whether you get off easy or just die from the start. What makes this fight as difficult as it is his constant phase shifting, which changes his affinities and skill sets. When the fight starts, he will always be in the initial phase, which has him resist everything, including Almighty. The skill set in this phase is Megidolon, Mahamon, Mamudun, Power Charge, Tarunda, Dekaja, and Dekunda. It's worth noting that this is the only phase that has Dekaja and Dekunda, so when he leaves it, you don't have to worry about him peeling your buffs or his debuffs all at once. Also worth noting that he can one-shot one target with his basic attack if he uses Power Charge. Now, the solution is to just bring Heat in for Fizz Resist, right? Wrong! His basic attack is Fizz Almighty, so it can't be blocked, but it can't crit either. Phase 2 is his Fire phase, which gives him Miragidyne, Makanda, Makakaja, and Mind Charge. His affinities for this phase are almost exactly the same, except he absorbs Fire, but has his Ice resistance revoked. Phase 3 is his Ice phase, which is almost exactly like his Fire phase, except his affinities are swapped, and he has Sukuna in place of Makakaja, and Mabufudyne in place of Miragidyne. Phase 4 is his Force phase. He has Mizandyne, Sukunda, and Makakaja in place of Makanda. Now, you might think that because he's in his Force phase, Lightning is going to be what you have to hit him with. Well, wrong. The element you have to hit him with is Earth. Phase 5 is his Earth phase. It's literally just his Force phase, except he has Mind Charge in place of Sukunda. Phase 6 is his Almighty phase, and this is where your fate is decided if it wasn't already decided at the beginning of the fight. The only moves he has in this phase is Megidolon and his signature skill, Celestial Ray. Celestial Ray is severe Almighty damage that can inflict you with every ailment except stun. This one move is enough to end your run, not only because of the mind ailments, but if he used Mind Charge in the Fire or Earth phase and didn't use any magic on you until now, it's almost a guaranteed one-shot. He also has Celestial Ray in his initial phase, and he made damn sure I knew it. And do you want to know the most annoying part about this phase? It's the fact that this is the one phase where he is most vulnerable, with him taking 250% more damage from everything. Finally, Phase 7 is him taking a page out of Luigi's book and doing absolutely nothing. The catch is, he is outright immune to everything, including Almighty, so just use the time you have in this phase to get back on your feet if you need to. When he leaves the Luigi phase, he is almost guaranteed to go back to Phase 1 and use Dekaja and or Dekunda. With all the phases he has, you might be asking, how are you even supposed to know what phase he's in? Before his turn begins, he will always say a dialogue letting you know he is shifting his phase, the dialogue being him groaning. If he's groaning like he has to take a dump, that means he's either in his initial Fire, Ice, Force, or Earth phase. If he's screaming like he's having Taco Bell-induced diarrhea, that means he's in his Almighty phase. Finally, if he's groaning like he just relieved himself, then he is in the Luigi phase. The three characters I decided on for this fight are Gale, Cielo, and Surf. Surf and Gale are the main attackers, with them having their respective heavy elements, Blast Word, and Mind Charge. Cielo is the main support unit with him buffing, debuffing, and healing. Now, wait, shouldn't that last one not be possible since he doesn't have access to the healing line? Well, yeah, he doesn't have access to the healing line, but if you master the Goddess, Insane God, and Evil God mantras he has access to, then he unlocks the Vicious God mantra, which gives him Vanity, Mana Surge, and the best healing move in the game, Salvation. Salvation is Media Rahan, but with an Amrita effect, and Amrita cleanses all ailments. This puts the fight somewhat in our control since we're able to cure any ailments that we may get inflicted with by a Celestial Ray. But if Cielo gets inflicted with any mind ailment, that little control we had goes right the fuck away. This fight is the biggest test of patience and luck in the entire game. There is nothing you can do to make it easier. The only thing you can do is buff, debuff, heal, and attack when you can. That's it. And after many countless attempts, the dragon finally goes down. Defeating Huanglong Gaming grants you access to a room with a red wall. Behind the red wall is a treasure chest that contains the golden orb. When you take it to any Karma terminal, it unlocks the 5 Gods mantra, which imparts you with Celestial Ray and Fizz Absorb. Yes, I'm aware! With Huanglong Gaming defeated, no more bosses remain aside from the final one. When we make our ascent to the very top, we get a cutscene with Sarah and a woman named Angel. Sarah is pleading to her to not delete the junkyard, and since she knows that Angel needs her for her plans, Sarah threatens to have a Rakshasa kill her. Angel, however, outsmarts her and Alt F4s the Rakshasa out of existence. The Umbreon finally make it to the top of the tower to join in on the fun, but Sarah stops us dead in our tracks to show us mercy. Angel, however, sees our determination to fight her and makes Sarah lose her focus, allowing us to regain our mobility. Let's show her what we're made of.
Bring it on!
Hara in the first round has 2 forms that she shifts into every time she takes 1000 damage, Vishnu and Shiva form. Every time the fight starts, she will always be in her Vishnu form no matter what. In this form, she has access to all buff skills, Debilitate, Vanity, Hunger Wave, and Vaikunta. Her version of Hunger Wave only has a 45% chance to inflict hunger rather than a 65% chance, so it isn't as much as a threat here. And Vaikunta is an all-target heavy almighty attack with a 25% chance to stone, so be sure to bring in Null Death. Her Shiva form has all heavy, all-target magic, the best all-target physical attacks, Executioner, and Bhairava. Another one of her unique skills that is undodgeable severe almighty damage. Even with our best moves equipped, it still has a chance to one-shot, so be sure to get her out of Shiva form before she can use it. The switching between Vishnu and Shiva phase continues for a few cycles until she finally gets bored and goes full power. Hara in her pissed state by herself has a reduced moveset, but don't let that fool you into thinking that it's easy. The catch is she has 6 elemental cores, 1 for each possible attack type, that will attack you with its respective element. When all 6 cores are up, she repels everything. What you have to do is take them out. When 1 core, for example Ice, is down, she loses repel for that element. The normal strategy, which is the strategy I used, is to Mind Charge and use an all-target attack to take down all but 1 core at once. The core that's remaining is to be taken down by someone else. Also, don't think you can cheese the cores with Almighty, since Hara in the 6 cores have a 90% Almighty resistance. When it becomes her turn, she will revive 1 core at the cost of nothing, and what she brings back is random. Her skill set is Vanity, Hunger Wave, Dekaja, Dekunda, and Blood Curse, nothing too problematic. What is problematic is her combo skill, Reincarnate. Reincarnate is severe almighty damage that requires 3 of the 6 cores to be alive. It's problematic, yes, but as long as you don't let her have more than 2 cores alive, she can't use it at all. This is literally all you do for the entire fight until Hara goes down, proving that you can beat Digital Devil Saga with only your starting mantra lines. When the fight ends and the dust settles, the temple begins collapsing and everyone runs to the giant beam to escape. Surf, however, is having trouble getting there, and before he can, the tower explodes, causing everyone to get enveloped into a white light. Then the oh. I forgot about you. Alright, allow me to explain a few things. Remember when I said that Huanglong is the hardest non-New Game Plus boss? The hardest boss in the entire game is Demi-Feint. Anyone who has played this game or is familiar with it should know that. I can't fight Demi-Fiend because I am not on New Game Plus, and even if I was able to fight him, he may not be possible, all thanks to one crucial skill being locked behind a mantra no one can access: Null Sleep. Null Sleep doesn't prevent sleep, but rather gives the user a 100% dodge chance while inflicted with sleep, even against undodgeable attacks. And we needed this skill to dodge Gaia Rage. Gaia Rage is undodgeable, deadly almighty damage with 100% accuracy, and is the only skill in the entire game labeled as deadly, meaning it's a guaranteed one-shot. Those damage numbers you see right there are just a formality. Demi-Fiend casts Gaia Rage under two conditions. The first one is if there is anything shielding you, like magic mirrors or a null skill that isn't Null Sleep. The second one is during the fight when he summons Pixie or Parvati. What these two demons have in common is Dormina, which inflicts sleep, basically laughing at us for not being able to get Null Sleep. There are two potential workarounds that may work. The first one is the lucky endure a unit may receive. What that means is if a unit gets hit with a killing blow, then they might withstand the attack, but that is totally up to luck. The second one is Heat's Close Call, which is a guaranteed endure. The two biggest problems with this, however, is the fact that endure only works once per battle and leaves you at 1 HP, so you're gonna have to pray that Demi-Fiend uses Gaia Rage on his last available press turn. If he doesn't, then you're gonna have to pray that the next incoming attacks miss you, and even if they do, you would have to try and somehow kill him before he casts Gaia Rage a second time, otherwise you lose. And the common issue with both of these workarounds is that you're reverting to human form, so you have to heal up, then revert back to demon form. I'm sorry if you guys expected me to find something that is guaranteed to work, but right now I can't think of anything outside of what I just explained. But that doesn't mean it may not be impossible. Maybe with enough luck and some skill, maybe it is possible. That, however, is a story for another day. I want to thank FeyLordRobin for voicing the Hee-Ho Bros and Jaffinator for telling me the difference between one dragon and another, and I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in DDS2.